You're listening to Sister Stargazers, celestial and terrestrial observations and advice from two real-life sisters. Welcome, fellow stargazers. The sisters are in the house. Hi, Jude.
Hi, Sarah. How are you?
I'm good. How are you today?
I am fine, thanks.
Awesome. Well, I'm excited because it's episode 44. Episode 44, power number. And we're looking at Sunday, July 10th through Saturday, July 16th with a full moon smack in the middle-ish of the week. And we're going to, I think, focus on the full moon. But where do you want to start to get there?
Yeah, we can look at the full moon as kind of a pinnacle of the week.
Nice.
And see where the planets are leaning into that moon. So Mercury is in Cancer. The sun is in Cancer. So the Mercury and the sun are riding together. That will be part of the full moon. Venus is in Gemini and is making a trine to Saturn in Aquarius. Over in Aries, we have Jupiter, and Pisces has Neptune. And then the moon sweeps through. So the moon comes into Capricorn on Tuesday. But before we get there, I just want to set this up because on Sunday the 10th, the sun makes a sextile to Uranus.
Okay.
The sun's at 18 degrees Cancer. Uranus is at 18 degrees Taurus. So what does that mean? It means that there's the potential for a lot of like electrical insight activity, maybe not so much mental, but feelings, emotions are heightened by this contact.
Okay.
So this sextile from the sun to
Uranus.
Yeah. And it could be in response to, because the sun in Cancer is very touchy-feely, there could be insights, inspirations around practical applications of processes or understanding of what, values clarifications, what you want to put your energy into, what makes a difference for you, what makes you feel good. That's kind of where Uranus is in Taurus, is asking us to really kind of sort out where our values are.
Yeah.
What is it that we really want to pay attention to, put our focus on, gain insight from?
Yeah.
There could be the potential for these insights. And they might, depending on where you're coming from, it could be upsetting or it could be like an elation.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of happening before we get to this full moon.
Right.
On Tuesday, the moon moves into Capricorn, and it starts on Wednesday, kicking off a number of, before it gets to the full moon, it makes a number of applications. So it enters Capricorn on Tuesday around 5 a.m. It trines Mars, so it may energize your Tuesday. You may just be feeling like really, ready to take on the world, and put that energy into practical application. Again, the moon in Capricorn is being very practical.
Okay.
The moon then squares Jupiter. So, that's later in the evening. And this square kind of feeds into the next day where the sun and the moon square Jupiter at this lunation.
Okay.
So we have this moon square Jupiter. It can bring up feelings like you might feel like things are bigger than they are, or feelings are bigger than they are. And it kind of relates back to the self.
Yeah.
As we get into Wednesday, in the early morning hours, right around 12:30 a.m., Venus trines Saturn. And this is going to help us process. They're both air signs, Venus in Gemini, Saturn in Aquarius.
Okay.
It will help us process some of the emotions that might be heightened during this full moon.
Okay.
This is a extra super duper full moon. Because the moon is at its closest. So it's at its most close point to the Earth in all of 2022.
Yeah.
And will be responsible for the extremely low and high tides in the ocean on the subsequent days. So the days that follow. So because we are also, 80% water?
Yeah. Influenced by the tides.
Yes, that full moon, that closest position of the moon will be pulling on us a little bit. So emotions might be heightened during this lunation.
Yeah.
And before and after. So the exact time of the lunation is 2:37 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Wednesday, the 13th.
Yeah.
At that point, the moon is opposite the sun. The other thing that happens at the time of this full moon is that Mercury will sextile Uranus. So Mercury is with the sun in Cancer. So again, a very emotional position for Mercury. Mercury just came from Gemini, where it was all, very chatty and working with the mind and thinking. And now it's in Cancer, and Mercury loves the thinking process. But when Mercury's in Cancer, it's all very much tied to the emotions.
Yes.
Yeah. So the feelings, so feelings will be amplified because Mercury's riding with the sun. There'll be surprising feelings because there's Mercury sextile Uranus.
Yes.
And then you remember we just talked about the sun sextile Uranus on Sunday. So there's a lot of emotional surprises that I think we'll be dealing with at the time of this lunation and actually all during this week. The other piece, of course, with this full moon is that the moon is in Capricorn, making a conjunction to Pluto. Pluto has just made its exact conjunction to its Pluto return in the United States chart, the U.S. Sibley chart, which we did a whole program on, and you can check that out on our YouTube channel, USA Pluto Return.
Yeah, exploring the USA Pluto Return. It's a deep dive with some good information. So you can go there because that exact is on Monday the 11th, and then Pluto continues to get busy with the sun and moon.
Okay, so on the 11th, the Pluto return of the country is putting the planet Pluto at 27 degrees Capricorn. And then the moon will be at 21 degrees, 21 minutes Capricorn at the time of this full moon. So it's 6 degrees away from Pluto, which is basically, it's a conjunction. Yeah. The sun will be opposite Pluto.
Right.
The moon will be conjunct Pluto. So Pluto is the underworld. It's the great transformer. Yeah. It's the process of working through changing one state into another. Yeah. So there are emotional qualities to this moon that are really hard to ignore. And I think will be in one area of your life or another may be upsetting.
And you mentioned too that Pluto and the moon have to do with subconscious. So these might be subconscious illuminations and emotional that you might not be very conscious of the experience or conscious of why these emotions are coming up.
Right. There may be situations where you have a reaction. Yeah. Like you have this visceral feeling reaction, right? And you're not sure what to do about it or what to say. It might be easy at the time of this full moon to like blurt something out or to stuff it down and try to, subsequently deal with it in during the week. The other thing that's adding fuel to this is that the moon is trine Uranus. So again, Earth to Earth. So the moon in an Earth sign, Uranus in an Earth sign. It's this trine that is almost an excessive, easy flow of surprise. Maybe shock is too severe of a word, but upsetting. Not your regular mundane kind of day. Yeah. It's like something happens that's unexpected that kind of just throws a kink into the plan. So I would say be easy, be flexible. Yeah. And watch for like things that could be unhinging to you personally, that you may feel that you have to react or you have to do something, but it might be that you don't. It might be better that you don't do something and just let things perhaps play out. Because with Pluto, there's something much bigger than you at work here in terms of emotions, or there's a process. And because this is happening, this full moon, because this full moon is happening so close to the date of the country's Pluto return,
Yeah.
it's also possible, and because that Pluto return is in the second house of the US Sibley chart, it's also possible that there might be information about the stock market or the economy of the country or trade or commodities or real estate, something that has earth-based tangible reality that might be surprising.
Okay. All right. We had talked about the Sabian symbol for this full moon, and that kind of took us down a conversation of how we might approach these times of a little bit of upheaval and subconscious, surprising emotional feeling. Do we want to look at that Sabian symbol and then offer some advice about approaching this full moon with a particular attitude?
Let me read it from my favorite book, An Astrological Mandala by Dane Rudyard. So he says that this degree, Capricorn 22, which we round up because the moon is at 21 degrees and 21 minutes Capricorn, so we round it up to 22 Capricorn.
Yeah.
So here's what he says. This is the actual symbol, and then I'll read his keynote. So the symbol is, by accepting defeat gracefully, a general reveals nobility of character. And then Dane Rudyard adds his keynote, the realization that one may grow through defeat as well as, and perhaps more than, through success.
Yeah.
So we were riffing a little bit on, what that might mean.
Yeah.
Related to this moon. And looking at, maybe looking at challenges. I also mentioned when Sarah and I were talking that the degree of this particular 22 degree of Capricorn, it was where Saturn and Pluto met back in January of 2020.
Yeah.
So that was the degree that kind of kicked off a large cycle for the world and is connected with famine and pestilence, those kinds of issues.
Pandemic.
So, yeah, exactly. So this moon might be a time, this lunation might be a time where there's more information or there's a greater understanding around that particular issue. There's some closure or something because it's just about at the same degree, which is really interesting. I mean, the certain degrees, and this is another conversation for another time, but we can refer to degrees as hot points in a chart. So when we have an event that happens on a certain degree, or we see like a conjunction or the beginning of a cycle where two planets meet, and we see that degree in the moon or the sun or another planet hits that degree, there's a reactivation of that particular situation. And then in the light of this, with the country's Pluto return involved, it could be like that's upsetting to many people, not just on an individual level. But I would also just find out in your own personal chart where Capricorn is. What house does Capricorn fall in, and what house does Cancer fall in for you, and see what those particular areas of life hold. And then perhaps watch for a situation that might unfold that you might not feel you have control over, because that's also what Pluto is about. It's a process. It brings things up. It churns things up. It asks us to transform. Yeah. It might ask us to accept defeat gracefully.
What struck me with the Sabian symbol was the word gracefully, which, in thinking about a general accepting defeat gracefully can feel very kind of egocentric. Like, look how I'm accepting defeat so gracefully. But the word that's sticking with me is grace. And grace is different. It's not an ego operation. Grace is a heart operation that is the opposite of judgment. So when we can approach a situation with grace, we're sort of in the allowance of what it is unfolding. And I was just, as you were talking, I was writing, and the sentence that came to me is grace to embrace whatever is in our current situation. And it sounds like at this full moon, there could be a lot coming at us that we can just maybe try to be with and accept, help let process, maybe show kindness to another, to that then operate from that inner place of heart. versus judgment. That was what struck me with the Sabian symbol.
Right. And allowance.
And
because
allowance.
you pulled a couple of cards there that really also spoke to that.
Yeah. Well, what was interesting is it was the Ace of Cups and then judgment. So, and the Ace of Cups is about like a flow of acceptance. There's also this sort of divine, not intervention, but reception of something divine, something larger than you. And that to me speaks about getting in touch with that inner part, your soul strength, what do you value? What do you want to call upon and cultivate and grow from? I don't know. Any last thoughts as we wrap up?
Well, going towards the end of the week, the moon will move into Aquarius and make a conjunction to Saturn. So that will help us calm, bring things down. And because it's in Aquarius, it will help us process a little bit with mentally.
Yeah.
So things do calm down a little bit by the end of the week. And by Saturday, we have the big event on Saturday is Mercury Conjunct the Sun. So there may be some real internal conversations that might be possible, especially both of them being in Cancer. So some heartfelt conversations on the 16th that might be really good.
And just as we're talking about the heart, maybe a tool for this week is you can look up some heart math exercises, but even just the simple action of putting your hand on your heart and breathing through your heart, especially if you have a moment of emotional amplification,
right.
upset or just overwhelmed, that you can return and sort of bring some breath. Breath will be helpful. Okay, then. Ooh, super full moon.
Yeah, super duper full moon.
Well, thanks for tuning in. Remember that you can find us Monday evenings at 7 p.m. Eastern on WMPG.org with a live call-in show. So please join us there. You can email us at connect@sisterstargazers and check out our special edition on YouTube and Podomatic exploring the Pluto return for the United States. And until then, we'll see you next week. Thanks, Jude.
Yeah, it was so much fun, Sarah. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Bye for now, you guys.
Thanks for listening to Sister Stargazers. Let us know what worked for you this week. Find us on Facebook and post a comment at Sister Stargazers.